Asymmetric encryption is absolutely amazing. The beauty of this is I can simply pass a public key to anybody, they can encrypt whatever they want, and then send it to me. Now that sounds good, but there's a couple of problems with this. For example, let's say that I log into a web page. Let's say somebody's super famous like Amazon. So I'm on my browser and I type in www.amazon.com and I hit enter. Well, when I hit enter, the first thing my browser is going to do is says, I would like to make this as a secure connection. And the moment that happens, my server automatically passes, the public key down to the web browser and begins a process of setting up an encrypted connection between the server and the client. Well, that's great. I mean, that's what asymmetric encryption is all about. Just take my public key and then I'm going to encrypt something and send it up to you and we get it all working, right? Well, there's a problem here. In fact, to be honest with you, there's two problems. Number one, how do you know that this public key actually came from this private key? Now you'd say to me, well, Mike, didn't you say in other episodes that the definition of asymmetric encryption means that the only thing this can do is encrypt and the only thing this can do is decrypt what comes from this? And that is absolutely true. But there's some scary kind of things we can do, man-in-the-middle type of attacks, things called spoofing where we interpret things that can make it look like I'm on www.amazon.com, but I could be someplace else. So number one, is this really the private key? And then number two, is this really Amazon? Because there could be people who pretend to be Amazon. So we have what's called an authentication issue. I want to make sure, especially if I'm going to be putting my credit card on Amazon, that I am definitely dealing with Amazon.com. And to take care of that, the RSA folks came up with some fairly clever ideas. Now, I've been telling you all along, and I'm going to stick to this, that we use the public key to encrypt and the private key to decrypt. However, there is one kind of unique situation where we can do something a little bit different. This is the only place this happens. And that is when I'm initially sending you the public key, as I'm the web server, what I can do is actually use the private key to encrypt. Now, what I'm doing here is I'm encrypting the web page that I'm sending to you, and then I'm going to go ahead and hash it. And what you can do is, because you have the public key, I've just sent it to you, you can look at that public key, you can go ahead and encrypt and hash that same web page that I just sent to you. And if they match, you know that this web page came from the guy who actually has the private key. So what we're doing here is we've created basically just a hash that I'm sending along with the public key. So if you're connecting to my website, we're going to have what's called a digital signature. So the digital signature is nothing more than a hash that we send along with the public key, and that tells you, the recipient of the public key, that yeah, it really is me who made this, or at least we know that whoever is in control of the private key is also associated with the proper public key. Digital signatures are absolutely incredible, and they're a really, really important feature that we use all over the place. Every time you install a piece of hardware on a Windows system or install most software in a Windows system, you use digital signatures. Whoever created the hardware or whoever wrote the software, they actually sign it themselves as an extra level protection. So it's not just for web pages. So so everybody looks at this and go, what, is it a piece of paper? No, it's just some ones and zeros. So it's not that big of a deal. So what we have here is we have our public key with an associated digital signature. Now that sounds good, except for one thing, and that is it really Mike Myers? Yeah, we know that we've got an association between the private and public key, and this digital signature does a fine job with that. But do we really know it's Mike Myers? Now that could be a bit of a challenge because, you know, how do I know who's out there and who's not out there? So what we do is something fascinating. In this situation, what you and I will do, we'll start simple here, and that is let's bring in a third party. Now this is a third party we both not like and trust, whoever that might be, and in this case it's going to be my buddy Shannon. So not only when I send you a public key am I going to send you my digital signature to prove that it's associated with the right key, I'm going to also send you Shannon's digital signature. Shannon, out of the goodness of her heart, out of just kindness, or in these days usually money, will go ahead and check you out in one way or another. It depends on if you're trying to make a certain, almost said the magic word, if you're trying to protect a web page or a signed piece of software. they go through some process. They might have somebody call you on the phone. Are you Mike Myers? Yeah, could I see your driver's license number? I mean, it could really go a little bit crazy here. But the bottom line is most of the time when you're passed out a public key, you don't just get a public key by itself. You're going to get the digital signature from the person it's coming from, as well as a digital signature from a trusted third party. Collectively, all of this stuff gets put into what we call a digital certificate. A digital certificate is like a Microsoft Word document. In fact, it's a half filled out Microsoft Word document, and then you take this half filled out and you throw your public key in there in one spot. Remember, public key is just some ones and zeros. Then you throw in your digital signature, and then you throw in a third party's digital signature, and collectively all of this information is in one document called a certificate. That's really all a certificate is. So many people see these and get confused. Really, a certificate is just a way we pass out public keys with a little extra information to make sure that you feel safe about that. In fact, what you can do is, like, for example, let's say I don't know Shannon. What I can do is I can sign my own certificate. Yeah, I've got my digital signature in there, but there's two different places for digital signatures. I can put it in a second time and create what's called a self-signed certificate. Now, why would you want to do a self-signed certificate? Well, number one, to get a third party to sign a certificate, you're either asking a lot out of them or you're going to have to pay them, all right? And the idea of a third party is when you're dealing with strangers. Now, at my office at Total Seminars, we have some in-house web servers, just little in-house web pages, web servers we use for in-house stuff. It's not for the public. You can't get to these web servers from the outside world. The only way you can get to them is if you're sitting in my offices on my local area network. I don't want to pay any money. I don't want to go through this process. By the way, folks, it's trivially easy to make a certificate. Every operating system has some tool set that allows you to make certificates. So you can generate a certificate. The trick, though, is how do you get that second digital signature? And in a lot of cases, like for example, my in-house web servers, we don't need one. But if I'm going to set up some public site and I'm going to have something secure, I'm going to have a third party. But the question now is, who do you trust? I'm going to save that for another episode.